Exclusive stunning revelations on the rail scam. Is it now just a matter of time before Pawan Bansal is sacked? NDTV brings you details of how the minister's nephew used his offices and officers to push corrupt deals. Also incredible details of how the wife of Mahesh Kumar, the senior rail official who was allegedly trying to bribe the minister, did everything to hide her jewellery, cash and ill-gotten wealth when news channels started flashing reports of how her husband was about to be caught. With the writing on the wall, Pawan Bansal skips the meeting of the Union Cabinet. But his colleague in the Cabinet, Ashwani Kumar, who's been slammed by the Supreme Court for vetting the coal scam report, does go ahead and attend. But as far as Bansal is concerned, the CBI reportedly has transcripts of 1,000 phone calls setting up the 10 crore bribery attempt by that senior rail official, Mahesh Kumar. Is it time for the rail minister to go? Is the Prime Minister's club of Punjabi leaders, Pawan Bansal and Ashwani Kumar, a political liability? What about the image of the Prime Minister? Well, joining us to discuss various aspects of a developing story, NDTV's Sunil Prabhu, Tanima Biswas also joins us, as does Sunetra Chaudhary. Sunil, let me come to you for the biggest political story of the day, that Pawan Bansal chose, or perhaps was instructed, we don't know, not to attend that meeting of the Union Cabinet, but Ashwani Kumar did. So Ashwani Kumar appears to be brazen about it, that he's done nothing wrong. His may be a case of impropriety. But what does Bansal's absence from that meeting indicate?
Well, the official version, of course, is that he's unwell, but I think we can all see the writing on the wall as the CBI trail becomes far greater on the Bansal family. There will be a lot of questions, and as Mr. Bansal had offered to resign on day one, but they kept it on hold because of the Karnataka elections. It's now a question of timing. It's a question of an honorable exit. Mr. Bansal, who was seen as a Mr. Clean and a personal choice of the Prime Minister to look and clean up the railway ministry after nearly 2 decades, when the Congress party had got that portfolio, has really made a mess of things. In the light of what we have been getting and what we have been seeing, it's become a clear message to the Prime Minister as well as the Congress President as well as the UPA that the fact is the continuance of these two ministers, be it Mr. Ashwani Kumar for what he did in calling that meeting, though he did not do anything personally wrong, there's no censure against him, or by the Prime Minister in the Supreme Court hearing, but the fact that he is having a war with his own law officer, the Attorney General, as well as himself, does not behave well for the law ministry.
Right.
And for that matter, for Mr. Bansal, the fact that he has these allegations of corruption linked closely to his family is a sign that does not augur well, and clearly dents the image ahead of its 4th anniversary. The UPA 4 in its 4th year of its continuance is going to be seen as a corrupt government.
All right.
Which is continuing.
I just want to go across quickly to Tanima, who's been tracking a side of the story which seems to be getting murkier by the moment. How, Tanima, do we have reason to believe that the wealth of Mr. Bansal's family and some of his closest associates rose almost proportionately as his career as a politician went up, from the time when he was MOS Finance to when he assumed other important portfolios and rose in political stature? How did his family, in fact, literally get richer? All right, Tanima, there's a little bit of a problem over there with your audio. We'll get back to you in just a little while from now. Sunetra Chaudhary, what is the latest that you're hearing on the CBI's investigations? How soon before they actually interrogate Pawan Bansal himself?
Well, it could be any time now. In fact, our source, when we asked them whether it would be within the next week to 10 days, they said it could be sooner. What happens before that? Well, if he still remains a minister, which is what Sunil was talking about, then CBI, all they have to do is they have to inform his boss, which is the Prime Minister, and they point out very significantly to us that they don't need the government's permission in order to interrogate him. They just need to inform him. As in the case of a joint secretary, they need to tell the secretary. So here they will just inform the Prime Minister and call him in for interrogation. But what it will be a huge embarrassment, because other than Shibu Soren, there's no really other minister, sitting minister, who's been called in for questioning. So that's perhaps something that the government is also looking closely at. Now, why has his questioning become so imperative at this point? Well, CBI sources say there are a couple of things, but basically it's the revelations of this main accuser, senior railway official Mahesh Kumar. First of all, he says all his meetings with his Pawan Bansal's nephew Singla took place in no other place than the minister's official bungalow in Delhi. That's where it took place. Second, if you look at where Mahesh Kumar and Singla, where Singla used to sit in Rail Bhavan, it's either in the PS's office or in the OSD's office in Rail Bhavan. And in fact, that's why the CBI has also called in the PS to ask him why he was allowing Singla, who's a private person, to sit in Rail Bhavan. Those are two things. But the other factors are also that Pawan Bansal's name kept popping up. There are lots of references to him in telephone conversations during the time that CBI was conducting the tap on this main accused, that's a senior railway official who gave the bribe money. Apart from that, what's also happened is that in the interrogation, all other accused have implicated him. The only person who's saying that Pawan Bansal is not accused, is not involved in this, is his own nephew, who says it's his doing.
Who himself
Yes.
is who's under arrest at this moment.
That's right.
I just want to go back to Tanima Biswas. We've got that line back. Tanima, the question I was asking you about how the wealth of Bansal's family rose as his political fortunes rose. How do you have, or how do we have details of this?
Right, Vishnu, as we had broken the story around 2 days back about the connections, how Pawan Bansal has actually helped his close acquaintances to get to powerful and influential positions. In fact, we had given out the story 2 days back that his chartered accountant Sunil Gupta had in fact been appointed as a non-official, a part-time non-official director in a PSU in Canara Bank, and that bank in turn had in fact forwarded loans.
All right, apologies over there. We've lost that line once again with Tanima Biswas. Some technical problems. We'll come back to her later on. Let me just introduce our panel this evening. Abid Rasool Khan of the Congress joins me. Prakash Javadekar, spokesperson and Rajya Sabha MP of the BJP. Shogota Roy, Lok Sabha MP of the Trinamool Congress. And TSR Subramaniam, former Cabinet Secretary to the Government of India. Also with us, as also the well-known columnist and journalist Siddharth Bhatia. Thank you all very much for joining us. Mr. Khan, let me just come to you first, sir. The information that is coming right now, and obviously it all has to be proven in a court of law, suggests impropriety at the highest level. The fact that you've got relatives of the minister conducting business, allegedly criminal business, in his offices, allegations that 50 crores worth of loans were secured by relatives of Mr. Bansal when through the use of Mr. Bansal's position, they were shifted to various companies, banks. It just seems to indicate a huge amount of impropriety, perhaps corruption. Why is the Congress sticking on with this minister?
First of all, it's an unfortunate happening, and the way Mr. Singla was arrested by CBI and the investigation was done and 9 other people were arrested. One thing is clear, that the way CBI was always touted to be a Congress Bureau of Investigation, it has proved that Congress does not interfere or does not meddle in the affairs of CBI, and it is doing everything on its own.
Mr. Khan, Ashwini Kumar has been
let me come to that. I'm discussing the merits of this case.
You're making that phrase, or you're giving us that statement just a couple of days after the Supreme Court said that the law minister of the country vetted the coal scam report and that the CBI has been working under the government. How can you?
That is a very technical aspect which we need to discuss in detail.
Okay, we'll discuss
sweeping
it.
statement not be good for me or
Sure.
both.
Sure.
So now as far as Mr. Bansal is concerned, my party, as far as you also know, I also know, that it is seriously seized of the matter, and the matter is being discussed at the highest level, and we will take a call on it very shortly. But the fact remains that Mr. Bansal has not been directly implicated in any of these things, and his nephew, who has been arrested, has definitely been privy to his personal office or bungalow, which as a relative he is bound to have. So now whether
In Rail Bhavan. He was
Yes,
sitting in
yes,
Rail Bhavan
any
in his OSD's
minister,
office,
any
in his
no,
PS's
it's
office.
not as it is not very naive to say that any minister, either any party or any period is there. Always relatives come and meet them and go.
But he was conducting business over here.
Actually,
the
that is where
allegation.
I am coming to. Basically, if that business was being conducted with rail minister's knowledge or with the officers who are there, then definitely it's a very serious issue which we need to consider. Now the inquiry is on, and it is only a matter of 8 days or 7 days when the inquiry has started, and it's on the channels on a regular basis. The inquiry will be shortly completed, and based on the inquiry or before the inquiry, based on the facts of the case, the party will take a stand which will be to the satisfaction of the people of this country.
Let me just bring in Prakash Javadekar. Mr. Javadekar, the Congress party seems to indicate that until such time as Bansal is directly implicated, it's okay for his relatives and others to sit in his office in Rail Bhavan. No one knows why, but it's okay for them to sit over there. But he's not been implicated. We are waiting for an implication, sir. How does the BJP reply?
Absolutely. This is defending the indefensible on the first point, but more seriously, it is also an exhibition of shamelessness with which they can defend the corruption.